Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Sarva Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I offer my humble obeisances to all assembled Vaishnavas. It is a great pleasure and privilege to be with all of you in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Navadip Dham is the Sarvadhama Sara. It is the essence of all holy places, spiritual abodes, and all spiritual places are actually placed in Sri Mayapur Dham, so it is a very potent place, and for all of us, for our spiritual development is the best place to be. In the scriptures it is said, Navavida Bhakti Adhisthana, Navada Bhakti Adhisthana, it is the residence place of 9 limbs of devotional service. So in that way, each of the dvipas, it is representing one of the limbs of devotional service, and the most potent is the Antardviv, where Lord Gauranga have appeared, and is representing the self-surrender, complete surrender to the Lord, Atma-nivedana. And Lord Gauranga have came to give nothing else but prema bhakti through execution of Harinam Sankirtan and Raganuga Sadhana bhakti, which is of course first executed as prescribed devotional service by this sadhana bhakti. So this glorious dham, it said it's sarva-tamsa dham. It is like a crown jewel among all dhams. So it's very unique opportunity for all of us to reside here and perfect our lives. And along with Dhamvas, it is very auspicious to do Bhagavat Shravan, hearing from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this morning we have assembled to hear from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, first canto, chapter 17, entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali, text 3. So kindly repeat after me. Gam dharma-dughāṁ dīnāṁ bhṛśaṁ pada-āhatām vivatsām āśru-vadanāṁ kṣāmāṁ yavasam icchatīm gam dharma-dughāṁ dīnām bhṛśaṁ śūdra-padāhatām vivatsām āśru-vadanāṁ kṣāmāṁ yavasam icchatīm gam dharma-dughāṁ dīnām bhṛśaṁ śūdra-padāhatām vivatsām āśru-vadanāṁ kṣāmāṁ yavasam icchatīm. Prabhus. Mataji. Thank you very much. Gam, the cow. Cha, also. Dharma-dughāṁ, beneficial because one can draw religion from her. Dīnāṁ, now rendered poor. bhṛśaṁ, distressed. Śūdra, the lower caste. Pada-āhatām, beaten on the legs. Vivatsām, without any calf. Āśru-vadanāṁ, with tears in her eyes. Kṣāmāṁ, very weak. Yavasam, grass. Icchatīm, as if desiring to have some grass to eat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, she was now rendered poor and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Śūdra. There were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Purport. The next symptom of the age of Kali is the distressed condition of the cow. Milking the cow means drawing the principles of religion in a liquid form. The great ṛṣis and munis would live only on milk. Śrīla Śukadeva Gosvāmī would go to householder while he was milking a cow, and he would simply take a little quantity of it for subsistence. Even 50 years ago, no one would deprive a sādhu of a quart of two of milk, and every householder would give milk like water. For a Sanatanist, a follower of Vedic principles, it is the duty of every householder to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia, not only for drinking milk, but also for deriving religious principles. The Sanatanist worships cows on religious principles and respects brahmanas. The cow's milk is required for the sacrificial fire, and by performing sacrifices, this householder can be happy. The cow's calf not only is beautiful to look at, but also gives satisfaction to the cow. And so she delivers as much milk as possible. But in the Kali-yuga, the cows are separated from the cows as early as possible for purposes which may not be mentioned in these pages of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The cow stands with tears in her eyes. The Śūdra milkman draws milk from the cow artificially. And when there is no milk, the cow is sent to be slaughtered. These greatly sinful acts are responsible for all the troubles in present society. People do not know what they are doing in the name of economic development. The influence of Kali will keep them in the darkness of ignorance. Despite all endeavors for peace and prosperity, they must try to see the cows and the bulls happy in all respects. Foolish people do not know how one earns happiness by making the cows and bulls happy, but it is a fact by the law of nature. Let us take it from the authority of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and adopt the principles for the total happiness of humanity. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta-padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishnam Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surata Opangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padam Bhujao Radha Madan Mohanam Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prashtalibi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambhi Vamshivata Tata Stitaha Karshan Venu Svanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Goranga Jayataha Shri Shri Radha Krishna Bhyam Namaha By the mercy of Shri Shri Radha Madhava Panchatattva Srila Prabhupada will be able to speak on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam this morning, and also by the mercy of Śukadeva Gosvāmī and Sutta Gosvāmī, who are the original and the main speaker of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, will able to convey the message. And here the Sutta Gosvāmī is introducing the story of Maharaj Parikshit and introducing him as the main listener, the auditor of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Shrotra. The Vaktra is the Śukadeva Gosvāmī. Yeah, maybe like this. And the Vaktra, the speaker, is Śukadeva Gosvāmī. So we see how in this in last chapter, this chapter and next chapter, this speaker and hearer will be introduced, and the story of Maharaj Parikshit starts at the place, the desha of banks of Saraswati river in Bharatvarsha, Bharatkanda, at the time of the dawn of Kali-yuga, when Lord Shri Krishna have already departed this planet and Pandavas as well. So Maharaj Parikshit have inherited the royal right to become the ruler of whole planet, the Chakravarti, the emperor. So the circumstances were that at the bank of Saraswati river, the Kali have dressed as a being a Shudra, have dressed as a king and beating a bull and a cow. So in these circumstances, the Maharaj Parikshit, as exemplary emperor, he is performing interrogation and a judicial trial at the spot. So we'll try to hear about the importance of this story for our lives, and what Srila Prabhupada in commentary said that we should apply in our lives and also in our society. The predominant mood and the sentiment is Karuna Rasa, the compassion, because Maharaj Parikshit have shown the compassion for the Dharma, the bull and cow, which is it was personified Bhudevi. And secondary Gauna Rasa is the Dharma Vira Rasa, because he is exhibiting the strength of chivalrous righteousness. He wants to destroy and punish Kali. So we'll see how by his power and exemplary behavior he was able to execute this. And as per Dharma Shastra, which is the Vedic jurisprudence and the legislation and also the criminal and judicial system, we know there are three parts of Dharma Shastra which are shown actually in this chapter. The first is Achara, the conduct of civilized citizens. Then Vyavahara, criminal and judicial proceedings. And on the end is Prayashita, atonement and verdicts, dandas, the punishments. So from the beginning of this chapter we see how the whole system for interrogation was set. And many interesting points are there. And sometimes we think that what is the need for such a strong judicial system, but society which doesn't have judicial system will always be run by immorality, or it will always be political and not constitutional. And we see that Vedic social system, it is constitutional monarchy, where above the king there is brahmanas who are prescribing the conduct of people in general and also for the king. And it's not absolute monarchy where a king is declared that he have absolute power over everything and can make decision on his own. So no one is in society like that, so everyone should be checked. The brahmanas are checking kshatriya, and kshatriya is also checking brahmanas, and brahmanas also being self-inclined towards sattva and shuddha sattva should be the heads of society, because the more one acquires goodness and pure goodness, the more he is closer to the purpose of human form of life, and in that sense he should be positioned higher in the society. So from the beginning of this chapter, punishment and reward of Kali, we see that it is talk about the achar, the behavior, and especially about the durachar. Durachar is the misbehavior, misconduct. So Maharaj Parikshit so observed that the lower caste Shudra dressed like a king. It is very significant because in Vedic social system people are dressed as per their position in Varna and ashram. Regarding the Varnas, different Varnas, they would wear different colors and different ornaments. For example, Brahmanas would wear white and brownish, kings would wear red and purple, Vaishyas representing the fertility, they would wear green, and Shudras would be dressed in multicolor. So he was lower caste Shudra, but he dressed as a king. So it was indication that this person actually is not following his duty. Just by seeing the cloth of a person we can know actually where he belongs. But here is saying was beating a cow and a bull with a club as if they had no owner. So if he is a king, he would never beat cow and a bull. So by that way Maharaj Parikshit have concluded that he have dressed him properly. He is not a king. So in this judicial system interrogation, the king needs to know how to execute the perpetrator, victims, and witnesses also. So in this way he was able to conclude actually that he is not following his varna. Then further he is saying about the bull as a victim. He was white as a white lotus flower. He was terrified of the Shudra who was beating him. It's very disturbing to read these passages if you are having some inclination towards, compassion towards living beings. As he was so afraid that he was standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. So such a beautiful living being, as white lotus flower, such a nice comparison, analogy, upamana, and if he is beaten, that means that something must inherently be wrong in the kingdom. So then Maharaj Pariksit, as exemplary king, he is observing this and being astonished by that. And the next verse which we have read today is saying about the cow. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, she was now rendered poor and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Shudra. There were tears in her eyes and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Really disturbing descriptions of cow. And if you have ever seen something like that, then you can identify how terrifying this can be. Because the cow, being a mammal, have a developed nervous system and can perceive this pain in a intensive way, almost like a human, because cow is in a sattva guna, so she can experience pain like that. So the king was astonished by that, and it is known and propagated by Srila Prabhupada that in Vedic civilization 5 groups of people should be protected: brahmanas, cows, go, the strees, women, bala, children, and vriddha, seniors or elderly people. And if these 5 kinds of innocent people or beings are protected, then whole society can run properly. And how that is done? We need to think practically and pragmatically how that is done. So if temples are nicely maintained, that brahmanas can perform the puja, yagyas and samskaras, then brahmanas can teach, brahmanas will be satisfied and prosperous, and they will be able to give wisdom to others. In order to get wisdom, we need cows. So for cows, you need to have goshalas, and the vaishyas needs to protect the cows, because cows are producing so much of ingredients for Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, and also to produce nice human being by eating cow products. Especially the milk is good for development of finer brain tissues. So if cows are protected, if goshalas are maintained, and cow's milk is used in Krishna's service, then cows will get spiritual and material benefit. Then for a woman's tree, if household areas are created where a woman can take care of the foundational social unit, the family, then nice children can be born and educated. So then children are protected within home and the Gurukula educational system, which is very, very important. Without educational system, no society can transmit the knowledge and the values to next generation. So it's very important for restoration of civilization through generations. We need to have educational system, authentic and original educational system, which is done by Gurukulas. And finally, for those who are elderly and sick, the proper medical facilities should be there, hospitals, and especially the Vaidyas, Ayurvedic doctors should be trained properly that they can take care of elderly people, because elderly people are full of life experience and wisdom, so we should respect them by offering them such services. So by these five, society can be prosperous. But if we think about the modern society, it is completely opposite. Brahmanas are cheating, the cows are slaughtered in slaughterhouses, women are exploited, kids are taught ignorance, and the old people are sent in old people houses and like that. So it's a completely opposite than Vedic civilization. So the sattva guna definitely will not be preserved, and it is the warning for whole humanity. Actually, many times I think about Srila Prabhupada as a warning for the whole humanity. It is the time to wake up and think where we have actually came as a civilization and what are the real values propagated in society. So I inspire you to think about this very much and to see how we can turn over this in our lives. So then after this verse, the Maharaj Parikshit is starting interrogation. Or here is saying Papracha inquired, that he have inquired into nature of this situation. So the Vyavahar Dharma is started to be represented. And interestingly, first he's saying, just like if you have ever been in a court, you would see that first the judge is declaring the power on the behalf of a state, of the identity of the court. He is declaring his jurisdiction. In the same way, it is said that Maharaj Parikshit, well equipped with arrows and bow and seated on a gold embossed chariot, spoke to him with a deep voice sounding like a thunder. So we see the identity of a king, and in Vedic times the king was also the judge. He's well equipped with arrows and bows, showing his strength, and seated on gold embossed chariot means that he's very resourceful and independent in executing this power. So it means that is his identity. Then he's asking about the identity of the perpetrator. Who are you? You appear to be strong, and yet you dare kill within my protection those who are helpless. By your dress you pose yourself by a godly man, a king, but by your deeds you are opposing the principles of twice-born Kshatriyas. So he's addressing him being a cheater, Shudra dressed as a Kshatriya. Then he is giving him first charge or the condemnation. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow because Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the carrier of the Gandiva bow, are out of sight? Since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. So he is indicating the charge and the verdict which is supposed to be done. Then he's asking about the victim, the bull and a cow. Oh, who are you? Are you a bull as white a lotus, or you are a demigod? You have lost 3 of your legs and are moving on only one. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull? Then there is some kind of pacification where he is telling the bull that no one will be able to touch him because of his powers. He's the Shastari, the subduer and the ruler of the of all envious men. And now is very insignificant, significant part where he is saying that the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. So he is saying what is the Raja Parodharma, the prime duty of a king: subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. And how he gonna do that? By subduing the miscreants, those who disobey the rules of Dharma Shastra. So the prime duty of a king is not to secure enjoyment for himself and generations after him. Prime duty of a king is not to enslave his citizens. Prime duty of a king is not to impose harsh rules and regulations of citizens, but it is to subdue the sufferings of those who suffer. And because the Brahmanas, cows, the women, children and elderly people are prone to suffering because they are innocent, in that way the king needs to protect them. Then he is continuing the interrogation by asking, who have done this to you? And remembering that he in Satya Yuga had 4 legs, and in this age of Kali-yuga is having only one leg. Yes, this is what I was looking. It's continuing about the Rajaparadharma. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons, and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times, when there is no emergency. So if we see here, the prime duty of a king is to give protection to law-abiding persons. In Dharma Shastra is explained that Dharma Rajya, the statecraft, is not meant to rule people. People are by nature free. People are by nature free to follow Dharma according to their natural inclinations, svabhava. So people actually don't belong to king, people don't belong to the state. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm Indian, I'm European, in any country, I'm American, I'm Chinese or Japanese, and I belong to this country. And by that mentality, they become enslaved. And the unscrupulous rulers who are aware of this, they enslave people. The unscrupulous rulers, being overly masculine, they're trying to subdue people with their feminine mentality, who are very much dependent. And by that, they become slaves in society. Although a person is born with some ethnical background, doesn't mean that he is belonging to some state. We may be the holders of some passport, or we may be holder of some national document, identity, but doesn't mean that we belong to the state. Human beings are born free. Born free means that they have dharma, and they have their svabhava, they have natural tendency. So people have tendency to express their thoughts, to express their values, to express their understanding of life. Therefore, the freedom of speech according to Dharma must be allowed, freedom of movement must be allowed, and it is not actually it's not the duty of any government to ban people from traveling, ban people from speaking, ban people from exhibiting their freedom of worship, for example. It is their duty to enable people to fulfill their human aspirations. Because human aspirations are natural, so the real civilization, Vedic civilization, is actually need to craft its own policies which will be suitable for people, for example, of this atmosphere and Bharatvarsh, ambient, where people have their own tendencies. So just trying to imitate some external policies from abroad will not maybe function with this civilization. So it's very important to craft the policies according to the psychological nature of human beings. We need to know, we need to understand the nature, anthropological nature of humans, and then per that craft those political policies. Otherwise, people will always be dissatisfied, and the purpose of human form of life will not be fulfilled. So the nature of human being is God-given, Purusha Swadharma, and we should not think that government is giving us rights or taking our rights. Sometimes people go to protest for their rights, but actually it's completely wrong, because government never gave you your rights. It is known per constitution that when the government is acting immorally and unconstitutionally, the resistance is duty of praja. It is the duty of citizens. If king is not performing his duty, just like examples are there of King Vena, it is the duty of people to do resistance, because each human being is endowed with divine power to understand what is humanness and what is divinity. We have such tendencies, so we have responsibility to contribute to our society, to our community, and if we don't do that, then we are responsible for our own enslavement. So if someone is treating brahmanas, cows, women, children, or elderly like Kali, and especially in the age of Kali there are many Kalis, then we are responsible to acknowledge this, to discuss this, and to report this to people who have some accumulated power to deal with that. Otherwise, people should unite and make their own parallel social system, and Srila Prabhupada have many times advocated the parallel social system, because in modern social system everything is opposed to Vedic civilization, especially nowadays. Vaishyas who are prone to cheating and lying have through corporatism, to corporations, stolen many of wealth, but also rights of human beings. Sometimes these corporations, they are creating the policies within sovereign nations. So how these nations are anymore sovereign? So we know that in the original state of humanity is in Satyuga, where Brahmanas predominantly are living, and they are sense control and they can execute dharma per their own will. Then in the Treta Yuga, there is decline of Brahmanas, and Kshatriyas start ruling, in Dvapara Yuga, the Kshatriyas are in decline and Vaishyas are starting. And in Kali-yuga, the Vaishyas are in decline. And finally, the Kshudras will start to rule after some time, but still Vaishyas are in rule. And we see this nowadays, that sometimes some companies they have more power than nations. So it means that Vaishyas are above the Kshatriyas, and when Shudras start to rule, everyone will be there to protect himself with his own power, because there will be no proper Kshatriyas or Brahmanas to protect. So it is a very delicate time in history of humanity to deal with, but with the help of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we need to know how to protect ourselves. We need to know that the only social system is varnashram dharma, although may not exist within the quality, means that people who doesn't have quality take the post, but it always exists in a form. There will be always some brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas and shudras, and when we say that it's impossible to re-establish dharma, means it's impossible to re-establish in ideal way, but can be re-established if people are educated through gurukulas. Then people will be self-realized and take the position as per their own nature. In previous ages, people will be grown in their own families, and most of the time the nature of a child is not different from the nature of a family. So people have confused this, that this means that he by birth became this and that varna, because people didn't travel so much. The child was educated from young age within the vicinity of a family, community and society, so he would adopt the nature of that community. And most often the child doesn't have different nature from his parents. People have taught that in caste system that by birth we should declare who is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and because of that there is a decline in propagation of qualities in society. Because if someone is by birth in higher elite's social system, then why he would train and educate himself. So it's very important to understand that someone should get the post by the quality, by his qualification. Such meritocratic system which is based on the values and the punya, only the people who have good qualities are propagated to higher posts. Srila Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. So when you deserve, then you can desire to have some post. So on the end of this chapter, the Maharaj Parikshit is giving the danda, the punishment. It is the prayashchita section where there is atonement for Kali, and Kali is asking where he can stay, and he is telling him, you can stay where there is chaturvida dharma. Persons like you cannot stay in my kingdom. And interestingly, he said his jurisdiction, I rule above anyone and everyone and everywhere. So his jurisdiction is whole planet. Such a righteous king can rule whole planet and protect citizens. So chaturvida dharma are gambling, which is dyuta, gambling, then intoxication is pana, then striya is emancipation of woman, and suna is meat eating and slaughtering animals for any other purpose, like leather, the bones and whatever. So then the Kali, being very much crooked, he started to negotiate, being very diplomatic. He asked for one more place, because these places doesn't actually exist in his kingdom. He's asking for the fifth place, Panchasthana, and he's saying him Jatarupa, where there is a gold. And he's saying also, where there is a gold, there is a falsity, intoxication, envy, enmity, and lust. So he will exist there. The Maharaj Parishit also prescribing and declaring that people who are religionists, social leaders, brahmanas and sannyasis, and especially, should never go to any of these places, Panchasthanani, because then they will be polluted, and whole society by that is polluted. So these instructions are very practical nowadays, and everyone can exhibit in his own life. And Srila Prabhupada, being the well-wisher of whole humanity, he created this International Society for Krishna Consciousness to train people how to overcome above these tendencies and establish ourselves on the position of paradharma, which is Shuddha Bhakti. So by not gambling means being truthful, by not intoxicating, not eating meat, fish and eggs, and not having illicit relationship with women, ISKCON can create first-class humans, brahmanas and Vaishnavas, which can show the perfect example to society. So by following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, we'll be able to come to that level, and this level is prerequisite for high levels of devotional service. For paradharma, which is declared in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, savai pumsam paradharmo yato bhaktir adokshaje ahaitukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati, saying that paradharma for all human beings, it is service to adokshaja, and this service must be ahaitukya pratihata, causeless and ceaseless, and then the living being, the soul, will be satisfied. So sometimes we think why to follow all these Vedic rules and regulations, and it is to always remember and never forget Krishna. By blessings of Srila Prabhupada, we'll be able to execute this. So I thank you for your kind attention, and I believe we would like to rush for a darshan, but if there is any short question, I'll be more than happy to answer privately. Thank you so much, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because we need to finish till late, I'll request you any question to ask privately. I'll stay some time here.